Okay, all right, we're back now. I'm going to show you how we put the handles on this little dude like I was talking about. Now, if you look at this router base, I've already put the handle on one side, and I'll pick this up and show it to you. Now, you'll notice that I put it on with a screw, and I'm going to show you how to do that from the inside. I put it on with a screw, but I'm also going to take it off and show you how I did it by putting the one on the other side. So just bear with me while I take this off. And just a regular, this is a slotted screw, and all I do is just loosen that up, and that's just a slip fit through there. That doesn't screw into the metal, that's just a slip fit, so there's no problem. You can always drill it. What you'll have to do is drill a clearance hole, but I'll show you how I do that too. Okay, now I've got that one done and taken apart. Now I have what's called a center punch, and just about anybody knows what that is. And what I'm going to do is I already have it marked here where I want to center punch it. And this is just a little spot that's not quite opposite the other side, but pretty close to opposite. Now, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but don't pay any attention to that dark spot. But the spot that I center drilled is right there. So if you can see that. Now, I'm going to drill a pilot hole, which is a hole that's smaller than the final hole. And here's exactly how I'm going to do it. I've got that center hole, or that hole marked with a center punch. And that's all it takes for the pilot hole. And I'm going to remove this drill. And then I've got a bigger drill bit that's the right size for a clearance hole for the screw. Now, you realize that when you buy the whatever handles that you're going to put on yours, they'll come with screws, but they may be bigger or they may be smaller than the ones that I'm using. So you'll have to measure the screw and make sure that your clearance hole is the right size for that particular screw. And the nice thing about this metal is it drills real easy. Nothing difficult about it at all. It's really very easy to do. And once you get that hole drilled, then this is the screw that goes in from the back side, just like it's on the other side. And just bear with me while I put this screw through here. And even though it looks like I'm screwing it in, it's actually a clearance. But because there was a little bit of a burr on there, it's actually a clearance. It'll come right out. So now, if you will look at these, you'll notice that they're not directly across from one another, but still, once you get these handles on, and I'll show you this, they'll twist right on there. You can get them in, and since that screw is not threaded in there, it can turn forever, but this will allow you to snug it up, and you can turn it where you want it. And this is how the handles will be. Now, they're not directly across from one another, but they're very good, and they'll give you the ability to keep your hands on the board and give you something to hold on to while you're carving with this little router. This is really going to be a nice little router for you. So now that I've got those two handles on there, what we're going to do, we've got some JB Weld, and this stuff is quick set, and you've got about, from the time that you mix it, you've got about 5 minutes to apply it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze out 2 strips on this piece of cardboard here, and I'm going to get it mixed before I turn the camera back on, and just realize that you squeeze out 2 equal one equal of one and another line the same size or the same amount as the other one. And I use a dowel, and I'm just going to mix those up. Now I'm going to do that while the camera's off, and then when the camera comes back on, we'll apply these. The reason I'm going to do that is because you only get 5 minutes to get this set up. You get 5 minutes to apply it before it starts setting up. You can get stuff that it takes 24 hours. It takes a lot longer if you want to. I kind of like this quick set stuff. That's why I got it. But I do need to mix that up before I come back on camera and show you how I do the application. So I'll be back in just a minute after I get that mixed. Okay, we're back. Now I mixed this stuff up, and it's mixed up pretty good, and I've just got about 4 or 5 minutes before it starts setting up. So I want to show you how I do this. So I just use this dowel. I'll try to do this and keep turning it so that you can see it on camera how I'm applying this.
I'm going to walk in a little bit closer, Dad. I know that folks can.
Yeah, come on in, son. If you can
folks
get a
can
closer
hear me.
picture of it.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Sorry about the jiggling, folks. I'm better with a router than I am a camera.
I probably wouldn't need to do both of these while you watch, but since that's the way I planned it, that's what I'm going to do. And by using this little 1/4-inch dowel like this with a little flat on both sides, you can pick up the weld that you need to pick up, and you can make a nice little bead right in on against the housing of the router, and bring it out far enough on the handle, whatever size handle you have. Bring the JB weld out far enough on it so that it has a chance not only to stick to the housing, but it has a chance to weld itself out onto the handle. If you get any of this stuff on your hands, be sure to wipe it off because it's nasty stuff. But that's pretty much the first handle that I've done. Now I'm going to still set up while I've got this stuff before it gets all set up. I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to do it basically the same. What I want to do is what you'll want to do is you want to take this all the way around at the base, right where whatever handle you're going to use, where it goes up against the housing. You want to be sure that's where your main bead of this stuff is, so that it has a chance to weld itself to the housing. Because you got to remember, once this is set up, you got to leave 24 hours, but once this is set up, then you're going to go back in and take those screws out. So you don't have anything inside of the housing that in any way interferes with the router going in and out. And if this is done right, if you do this right, according to the way we do it, then you don't have to worry about those handles being loose or coming off or not doing what you want them to do. Now this stuff is already, it's been 2 or 3 minutes, this stuff is already starting to set up. So there's still enough of it, it's still liquid enough that it's still doing its job. But you can, if you were sitting in my shoes, you could see where it's really starting to get a little gummy, and that just means it's starting to set up, which is what you want it to do. All right, what we've got here, we've got a modified router base with the handles complete. Now, Remember, once you get it to this point, you let it sit full 24 hours. You don't pick it up, you don't move it, you don't handle it. You just set it up someplace and just set it for 24. Let it sit for 24 hours. Then you put the base back on. The reason I didn't have the base on there, in case I dropped some of this stuff, I didn't want to glue the base to that. So once you put the base back on and get those screws out of there, it's ready to use after 24 hours. So that's how you do it. Now, I have two or three little notes. Number one note is this is the router base that my son modified. It has a little different handles on it, but it's basically the same. If you look, they're not right straight across. They're just slightly angled. But it's basically the same, and it's done with JB Weld. This is off of the DWP DeWalt router. Okay. The other thing is, on my first video, the first part of this video, when I cut the hole with a hole saw, I forgot to mention this is a metal cutting hole saw. Don't try to use a wood cutting hole saw. This is a metal cutting hole saw. So be sure and get a 2-inch metal cutting hole saw. The next one is the placement of the handles has to be so that you can, when you're doing your routing, you want to be sure that the heels of your hands are down on the board. And this is how you really judge when you're carving. You don't want to have your hands up away. You want to have your hands on the heel of the heel of your hands on the board when you're routing. That's the third one. Now, the last one is a guy, Jack Dean, back in Ohio, I think, or Pennsylvania, Oil City, Pennsylvania. He wrote and told me that he modified a router the way we described the modification, but he got a piece of acrylic. He just bought a piece of 1/4-inch acrylic, and he made a 6-inch. He made a 6-inch diameter base for his router. He said he likes it a lot better because if you're on a big sign, it has less tendency to tip if you have a 6-inch base. So, I just wanted to mention that Jack did that. He's happy with it. We haven't done it, but you might want to give it a try if you have any problem with this tipping. If you don't like the stability of it. That's it for this one, and we'll see you on the next one.